Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luca. Luca, it is Labor Day weekend, Monday, Labor Day. We're putting this episode out one day later just because we thought dropping an episode on Monday morning on Labor Day, people may not be on the way to work. And that's when we want people to be hearing our episodes. But we are one day closer, 6 days away at time of recording from the season opener for the Bills,
Mm.
only a couple days away from the season opener for the league. The football taste is in the air, Luca. The weather is starting to feel like fall. I think it's safe to say we made it.
We absolutely made it. And
Mhm.
yeah, great idea by you to wait one extra day, by the way, because I had a lovely drive diagonally across this wonderful state of New York from the island all the way to Western New York. It was honestly the quickest that possibly could. But I'm glad we're recording this now instead of last night while at the in-laws enjoying Labor Day weekend. And my favorite thing about Labor Day weekend, Josh, is I think the Dan Patrick show put out a tweet just like what signifies the start of fall. And one of the options was Labor Day weekend. And that to me is absolutely the correct answer. Labor Day weekend comes and goes. College football week 1 is always this week. And then
So
after
good.
this weekend, it's like, boom, you are in fall season. You have the NFL ready to go Thursday night, of course. Now you get Thursday, Friday into then Sunday. And it's kind of one of those things where if football is fall is football. There's you don't think about, hey, the Bills are playing on September 7th and it's summer. It's late summer, and that it's like, no, it's the fall. It's September. We're in the fall time, and it feels great. You wake up and it's 49 to 51 degrees. There's that nice crisp smell in the air, Josh. It's a great time of the year, and I'm excited to do this episode because this is the last one, Josh, we will be doing until we are doing kind of recaps and enjoying real, and I mean real, Bills football as we progress through this 2025 season. Very excited.
Yeah, no more Shane Buechele recaps. Frank Gore Jr., love you, dude, but tired of talking about you. We are on to the real thing. And look, at this point in time, Luca, in this Josh Allen era of the Bills, I know who was it that got asked it? Was it Josh Allen? He got asked about Super Bowl. No, it was Deion Dawkins on God, what was he? Oh, he was on the Nick Wright show.
Hmm.
Got asked about whether it's Super Bowl or bust, and Dion said no. But he's like, look, every team wants to win the Super Bowl. He's like, it's an honor that we're one of the teams that gets to go toe to toe with the Chiefs. Every game is a dogfight, yada yada. But I think, despite the fact that I get what Dion's saying, it's so hard to win the Super Bowl because we've seen it. Unfortunately, all it takes is one missed Tyler Bass field goal and your season's over, or one brain fart on defense from Levi Wallace and your season's over. And everything, training camp, the regular season, everything you did to get to that point is just over in the blink of an eye. One bad fourth down spot and your season's over. It's so hard to put all of that into like a one game thing, but that's where the Bills are at now. It's Super Bowl or bust feels unfair, but hey, welcome to the big boy expectations. It's hard to think of a scenario, Luca, absent a Josh Allen injury, where this team doesn't win the Super Bowl and we don't look at this season as some sort of a failure. I know you've been big on if they make it to the Super Bowl and then lose, at least that's another step. And that's true. Like they will have gotten past the AFC. They haven't even done that yet. Like get to the Super Bowl. Obviously, that would be like the ultimate pain, particularly for Bills fans that have seen this team go 0-4. But I do think that is why, even more so for me and you, this preseason was just about no more injuries. And look, the Bills lost Dwayne Carter this week. That's terrible for him. He's a young player, tore his Achilles. I hate that. But when you look at like an injury that could really impact whether or not the team wins or loses games this year, they avoided that so far. Preseason was a success. How does the regular season go? Do we have a repeat of 2022? The DeMar Hamlin, I did not mean to put air quotes there, but I'm trying to think of the best way to describe that year. But the way people remember it is the DeMar Hamlin incident.
Right.
But also the Bills just kept losing player after player. Von Miller, Tre'Davious White. And then by the time the playoffs rolled around, they had Daquan Jones playing with one arm. Their entire defensive line was out, and it was just a hodgepodge of Bills out there. If you have one of those years, what are you supposed to do about it? Or 2 years ago when they played the Chiefs and they had no starting linebackers. They had, God, who was it off the street? Got
AJ Klein.
AJ Klein off the street trying to cover Travis Kelce. Why didn't that go well? So, injuries can play a role in it, Luca, but it do or die. Like that's where we're at. And that's why you and I were beating the table last week for do what you gotta do to get on this Micah Parsons train and see what you can get done there. Jabril Peppers is out there. That's an interesting player that would certainly help this scheme. But this is a long-winded way of saying that the real games start in less than a week. And this season and this ultimate postseason, there's really only one goal that matters for a team like the Bills. And if they don't get it done, more questions than answers.
Yeah, when it's Super Bowl or bust, I respect what Dawkins is saying, because you're sitting here in, as that interview happened in late August, we're now in early September. There's so much time in football to be played out that, from a player's perspective, I actually kind of respect the mentality of, no, it's not Super Bowl or bust, because they also have lived through, as you painted it out beautifully, so many different things that have altered the course of where they ultimately wanted to be, and it falling short because of it. There's a ton of things that can happen. And you pointed out, I talk about get to the game. And it's the mentality of, even like the drought Bills era, where it was like, just get into the dance, just get into the playoffs and see what can happen. You have runs that can magically happen, like the 2008 Cardinals, or, the 6 seed Giants just winning these colossal games on the road all the time. You get into the dance and you see what happens. For the perspective of the Bills, you make the Super Bowl and then just see what happens. You have to get there in order to win one, of course. They haven't been able to even achieve that step yet. Just get there and then let's see what happens. And anything can happen in a one-off game. That's where the beauty of, say, the NHL playoffs is. It's not just down to one game. So you truly get to see the matchups, how it plays out through a series of games, similar to the NBA, obviously, too. Whereas in the NFL, one-off games, you get Joe Flacco throwing Hail Marys that all of a sudden are being come down with, and they upset the Broncos in their house. Like, you can have those one-off moments that ultimately have a titan of a team like the Broncos fall short just because of a couple magical moments on the other side. That's the beauty then, in turn, of the NFL. So the Bills keep coming up short on that front, and therefore just get over that hump, get to the next step, get into the big one, and then let's see what can happen. That, to me, is where the pass fail of this is. It doesn't need to end with the trophy necessarily to be a true pass, but of course we all want to see them lift that Lombardi if at all possible. But if I were even a player, just to kind of what we're talking about here, I love Dawkins just kind of, the media wanted him to say, yes, we know where we need to be, stuff like that. And for him to kind of just give a little bit more of a in the locker room perspective of the goal for them, as we've heard them talk about numerous times, is win the division, because it's the easiest way to get in the playoffs. It's the best way to get into the playoffs, because you guarantee yourself a home game and you go from there. That's always the mentality year after year. And honestly, it's as simple as that. So start from there and then see where you can build it from there. The Bills do understand that they're one of the Super Bowl favorites and what feels to be a legitimate contender. But overall, that shouldn't be, on the forefront of your mind. On the forefront of your mind is, no, it's not boom or bust. Let's go out there. Let's worry about the Ravens week 1 on Sunday night. Let's worry about our division before we, learn to run and see where that, the seeding can be, and where ultimately we will end up as the postseason progresses. It is early September right now. We have months of football to be played out. There is time to see how the dominoes start to fall.
And we will get a look at those dominoes tonight, because Luca and I are going to give our season predictions. We're going to do a little bit different format this year than we've done in the past. In the past, we've gone game by game, given our predictions, and then gone on and predicted how they do in the playoffs and ultimately whether or not they win the Super Bowl. Tonight, we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to take a little faster look at the schedule, break it up into monthly chunks, give the record maybe a quick little overview of why we have that record during that chunk of games. We will talk about what we think the Bills are going to do if they win their division, how they'll do in the playoffs. We also want to spin it around the league, though, and we're going to talk about who's going to be the MVP, our predictions for that, offensive and defensive player of the year award winners, the first coach that's going to be fired. I think that's an interesting one to talk about. A lot of these you can bet on too, by the way. Um, what fantasy football player that's not currently being drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts is for sure going to be drafted in the first round next year? Like who rises up into that elite tier? And then we will go through our division winners and ultimately the Super Bowl. But Luca, let's get it started off with the Bills. Let's start off with their September schedule. They do open up in 6 days at home on Sunday Night Football against those Baltimore Ravens, a rematch of the divisional round matchup last year, where the Ravens really just made enough mistakes for the Bills to hold on for the victory. And then week 2, they go to New Jersey, the Meadowlands, to take on Justin Fields and the Jets at a 1 o'clock game. Week 3, a tricky spot there on Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins. And that is always a little bit tricky on Thursday night. You feel like there's randomness there. You'd much rather be the home team in that spot. Dolphins got some bad vibes right now. We can talk about that. And then week 4, probably what I would consider the easiest game on the schedule, at least what it looks like right now, a home game against the New Orleans Saints. That wraps up September. Luca, what kind of record do you have the Bills going in September with?
September is going to be an interesting one. I have them going 3-1 in this stretch, but it will start with a loss against the Ravens. It feels like the Ravens are a beautiful team set up at full 100% health. They are an unstoppable force, and you need a Eagles like defense to truly have enough talent out there to slow it down. And I'm not out here saying that I believe the Bills don't even deserve to be on the field with them, but it's one of those things where motivation for being the ones that knocked out the Ravens and the high-powered offense that they believe they had, that was finally the answer with Derrick Henry coming in and all of this and that. Like, there's motivation, and then also just you look at the roster, you look at who they are. The Ravens themselves, similar to like the Steelers being the greatest week 1 team in NFL history, it feels like. The Ravens are a very good, well-established culture team that it feels like, they come out swinging each season, and they are a very good week 1 team outside of, I recall them opening up against the Chiefs one year in their peak, of course, currently. And I believe they fell short, these one-off games, which the Bills, of course, are in that conversation, but ultimately it feels like that one kind of loss in that stretch. But on the turn of it, you lose week 1 in a home game to kick off the season against the Ravens. That's where I think you go to the Meadowlands and you absolutely pound the unable to pass offense known as the New York Jets this year. And then you have a short week against the Dolphins where the vibes are just absolutely atrocious, as you mentioned. And I mean, Achane sounds like he's going to start the season playing, but there was even time where once he got hurt in the preseason that they were thinking the first 3 weeks he was going to be out. I don't know how that drastically changed, and he's good, but there's clearly something there. And you kind of highlighted it a little bit. The Saints are hoping Arch Manning, although I don't know anymore, but they're hoping that number 1 pick quarterback will be for their taking and will have a premier individual sitting there, because they, in my opinion, they're the front runner going into this year to have and hold that number 1 spot in the 2026 NFL draft, because there are just a lot of things going on there, including drafting Tyler Shuck and then all of a sudden being like, oh no, this guy's actually not good. We're going to go back to Spencer Rattler. And poor Alvin Kamara is just going to have a very tough time on that offense, because they're not going to be able to threaten any other way at all. Brandon Cooks is not exactly the Drew Brees era Brandon Cooks anymore, as he returns there too, if anyone forgets. He's a little bit long in the tooth now. So yeah, overall in the month of September, I believe 3-1 record with a little bit of a hiccup against the Ravens, but it's nice to have the Ravens and then follow that up with the Justin Field Jets, the whatever the hell's going on in Miami Dolphins. And then, of course, what I'm saying, the 32 of 32 in the NFL this season, it feels like, in the New Orleans Saints. That's a good way to get right back on track.
I have them going 3-1 in September also. I also would think that that Ravens game is the game that they will lose. I will say, if they beat the Ravens, my brain's gonna be like, "Oh, man, that may have been the toughest game on their schedule. When will they lose?" And, they probably will lose a game or 2 along the way at bare minimum. But you start looking ahead and you're like, "Man, the Jets with Justin Fields, how scary is that?" We've seen the Jets with worse quarterbacks than Justin Fields play the Bills tough, beat the Bills. So, I'm certainly not overlooking that spot. I'm assuming that's the Jets' home opener. Nope, that Pittsburgh comes to them week 1, right? So, I guess
Yeah.
the Jets have back-to-back home games. That's good. I don't wanna home openers can be extra tough for whatever reason. The Dolphins, tricky because it's Thursday night football, but ultimately, like, talk about a team with bad vibes right now. They've already lost, it seems like half of their secondary to injuries. Achan's already nursing an injury. Their backup running back Wright is nursing an injury. Tyreek Hill, I'm not even trying to make light of this, feels like his brain is starting to go a little bit left, like we've seen with some other star receivers in the past. This is a team that looks like they could be on the verge of a disaster. I do think it's interesting that the week 1 opponent is the Ravens because despite the fact that the Bills won that divisional round game 27-25, I think it was evident to everybody watching that the Bills really didn't have a lot of answers for stopping the Ravens, particularly in the second half, and a lot of people forget that Zay Flowers didn't even play in that game, and although Isaiah Likely may not play in this game, that might be a decent one-for-one. The Bills went out this offseason and spent so many resources on defense, whether it's Joey Bosa, whether it's extending guys like Terrell Bernard and Greg Rousseau and Christian Benford, whether it's drafting a cornerback in the first round, then 3 straight defensive linemen, rounds 2, 3, and 4. Obviously, Maxwell Harrison's not going to play. And then Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi, who also aren't going to play. But the the long-winded answer is if it comes out game 1 and after all those resources you put into fixing your defense, if it looks a lot like the playoff game where the Ravens averaged nearly 6 yards a carry and the Ravens did outgain the Bills by nearly 200 yards and they were 70% on 3rd down, I think that could cause a lot of concern. Now, I will tell you, Luka and I will be here to say, "Look, you're counting on rookies, and it was game 1 against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Like, what did you expect?" But I do think that this is a tough spot for the Bills. And if they win, and they are favored to do so, it's important to note, like 1.5 points, but they're favored to do so. It's a monster win, but don't I wouldn't let a loss get you down, and I think there's a chance it could even be a fairly lopsided loss. We shall see. Hopefully, we're wrong. Let's roll into the second month of the season, and it starts off with a very interesting game against the Patriots, Luca, and it's interesting for a couple fronts. One, I think you and I are pretty high on the Patriots relative to the other 2 AFC East teams, and 2, this is the 3rd AFC East game in 4 weeks with the
Mhm.
Jets and Dolphins coming right before that Saints game. So October 5th, home against the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. That's an interesting Sunday Night Football spot. That Patriots team doesn't feel like one that should be there just yet, but Boston market, Drake May, interesting. Mike Vrabel maybe getting some new shine. Then they come back the next week on Monday Night Football in Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons before traveling to the Carolina Panthers. And that is it for October. They have a bye week. So there's 3 games in October. Um, I think all these games are kind of tricky. I'm going to give the Bills here, and this to me is respecting the program, respecting where I think they are relative to the opponents that they're playing. I respect all 3 of their opponents. I think the Panthers are actually going to be sneaky good. I like what I saw out of Bryce Young. I think they're going to be good on offense, defense. Same thing for the Falcons. I like Michael Penix, good on offense, defense. But you're talking about a team that's competing for championships, taking on 3 straight teams that are competing for wild cards. And the Bills need to show them that there's a difference in class here. I have the Bills going 3-0 in these games, and I think they're all going to be very interesting.
I have them 3-0 as well in this stretch. Fun fact just to note as well, if anyone is unaware, that week 5 Sunday night game will be the Rivals uniform game, which is, I'm going to just say this now. It's going to be weird because I thought it was a good point somewhere else on another program where it was, You would think they were going to go super contrast, similar to like the Color Rush vibe. So it was very apparent of what each team is. And yet you have the Patriots with white helmets or light colored helmets with a lighter blue jersey and white pants matched up against all white in the Bills. Feels like a little bit of a weird thing, but in turn, the Patriots are wearing theirs twice, whereas the Bills are only wearing theirs once this season. So also find that whole situation weird. I digress. The Patriots Sunday night game, though, simply put, this is going to be the first time where expectations are there for Drake May in a moment on the road against the big bad bully of the division. And even with Vrabel, who I do respect and everything, this is it's got vibes of, well, this is daddy. This is like the Bills at any point during the drought when they had a little bit of momentum or whatnot, and then they had a game at New England. This is where you get that reality check. This is there's levels to this. And we are daddy of the division. We, as you pointed out, you are looking for a wild card right now. You're looking to improve and hopefully hunt for a wild card. We're trying to compete for championships. And we're going to show you why we're doing that and why we can do that. Now, in turn, you go on the road, you go to Atlanta, you have this beautiful Monday night game against what feels like a good vibes Falcons team, mainly for the offense, the hope of Penix and all that kind of stuff. The defense is just so lackluster to me that when you have a matchup, if you know, and I feel like this will continue later in the schedule, it's why I'll bring it up now. When you have a matchup where it's 17 and Josh Allen of the Bills going against a team that is a bottom third defense, in my opinion, or in the opinion of a good chunk of people, the Bills should be decently favored at least in that matchup. They seem to traditionally absolutely exploit the shit out of that. Josh Allen controls the game for all of 60 minutes, and it's not necessarily always easy work, but at the end it feels like easy work because it's not like you ever felt too threatened. So you go into Atlanta, which could be an absolute hiccup. I mean, you're on the road on a Monday night. There's different vibes, different things, and it's not a familiar foe as well. Josh, I think that's something also that can sneak up on the Bills once in a while when it's not a divisional opponent or whatever in those slots, and it's just the Falcons on the road. Like, that's just one of those ones. Will be a great uniform matchup as well. Fun fact, I believe that one will be the Falcons wearing all black. I think they're wearing their all black retros. I think. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's an elite matchup, elite uniform matchup. After the bye, Sean McDermott doesn't lose after the bye. Let's just put it that way. And you're playing Carolina, who I believe was 32nd in the league last year in pass rush. Well, that's not exactly a good thing when you're playing against Josh Allen. And, you know, that's just, the bottom line is that I agree with you on the Bryce Young stuff. And I like what's going on offensively there. Although you trade away Adam Thielen, which is fine. It's not like Adam Thielen is a world beater, but that is something to note at least. And then you did kind of a very weird running back swap with the Cowboys through free agency where you bring in Rico Dowdle, but then you set Miles Sanders ends up on the Cowboys. Very weird situation there.
I mean, I'd much rather have Dowdle, but it's going to be Chuba Hubbard there, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm pointing that one out because I just thought that was a really weird one. Yes, it will be Chuba, of course. I like Chuba, whatever, but I also don't think he's a world beater in the backfield as well. It's just, this is a stretch here that the Bills should absolutely be able to make work trips happen, take care of business. If they're on the road, like with the Falcons and the Panthers games, you're heading home after business was taken care of. You got your win. Now you're moving on and moving forward because you have some bigger matchups, luckily most at home, if not all at home, on the horizon as we move into November.
And November is going to be interesting. The Bills have 5 games starting with a familiar foe, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes here at 425. That should just be a beauty. And then the Bills go to Miami November 9th. Hopefully the weather, the sun is not a huge deal there in first week of November, second week of November in Miami. And hopefully the Dolphins season's kind of off the rails at that point. Come back for a tough matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before traveling down to Houston for another Thursday night matchup. Again, tough on the road teams. Bills are down there on Thursday night. And then ultimately, 10 days later, going to Pittsburgh, taking on Aaron Rodgers, TJ Watt, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5 games in November. Luka, how do you see that one going?
Short and sweet. Bills always beat the Chiefs in the regular season. I don't think anything changes there. I think ultimately they will win that one. I just kind of going through real quick. Dolphins, you bring it through. I really, there's one loss in these 5 games. So I'll go 4-1. The loss isn't the Chiefs. The loss is most certainly not the Texans. And I'll get into why later in this episode. Hint, hint, foreshadowing. And it's not the Steelers. The Buccaneers are sneaky, man. The Buccaneers are a team that it's one of those ones where Todd Bowles, I respect the shit ton for his defensive prowess. And I think he can get a lot and do crazy things defensively that cause problems. I think even a couple years ago when they came into Buffalo on that Thursday night game, the Bills ultimately won decently, but there's just still those little wrinkles that were in there and were causing a little bit of problems here and there that it didn't make it a total smooth affair. And I mentioned it to you off air. The Buccaneers did something this year in the draft that I loved so much. In my opinion, the most NFL ready wide receiver in the class was Emeka Egbuka. And he popped. The only reason he wasn't number 1, even at a powerhouse like Ohio State, was because, this true freshman guy, Jeremiah Smith, turns out to be an absolute alien. And even when he came into the room, everyone else was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to college for a year because this guy's going to lead us to a championship. And we saw what happened in the college football playoff. You bring him in though to fill that Godwin role, it feels like it's just a match made in heaven to slot in there, continue everything you can with him. Mike Evans and Bucky Irving is an absolute beast, and Baker Mayfield. It's crazy to say it because I think he does get a fair amount of appreciation, but it still feels like at times he's underappreciated or even maybe forgotten, where you have fantasy drafts and individuals that I respect their football prowess taking the likes of Dak Prescott and Jordan Love over him. And that makes no effing sense to me whatsoever. You're banking on garbage time with those people. Shout out, you know who you are. They are a sneaky, sneaky good team. And we talked about the Falcons. We talked about the Panthers. Their offenses might be nice, but the defense lacks a little bit. The Buccaneers are the kind of team that even if the personnel might not be totally great, Todd Bowles and what they do schematically and everything like that can elevate things and create chaos and so on and so forth, that I can forecast or foresee that simple 1:00 afternoon slot at home against an unfamiliar foe in the Buccaneers. That could absolutely create a speed bump, Josh, in my opinion, in November. So ultimately, I will give them the 4-1 here with that middle, November 16th, middle month loss. And from there, we'll go into that Thursday night at Houston, and then also in turn go to Pittsburgh and have to kind of fight out some wins. And I can't see them losing to those teams, to be quite honest. I just think there's too many question marks ultimately with them as well. That 4-1 feels right.
I got that as a 3-2 stretch. I don't necessarily have specific games I think they're going to lose. In some regards, it'd be a breath of fresh air to see them lose to the Chiefs in the regular season. Maybe it's a sign that things are changing at this
Flip
point in
it.
time. This is a Bills team that always, last year they stomped them, but kind of always struggles with Miami, but at least once a season. But I have a feeling this Dolphins team, by the time November rolls around, could just be deader than dead, especially with some of the personalities in that locker room. Luke already talked about the Bucks. I agree with a lot of what he said about them being a sleeper team. I'll tell you the game for me that's going to be the biggest game of this 5-game stretch, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's got to be the Chiefs." No, we've seen that a million times. What else could you see out of a Bills Chiefs game? Bills Texans, and I'm going to tell you why. The last 3 times the Bills have been eliminated from the playoffs, Bengals, Chiefs, they have been completely unable to stop a team that had an undermanned offensive line. And when you saw last year, the Chiefs could not move the ball on the Texans. The Chiefs could not move the ball on the Eagles. When they played the Bills, they went up and down the field. The Bills made it their mission this offseason to go fix their defensive line. Luka and I will be here week 1, giving all the leeway in the world to TJ Sanders and Walker and Hoyt, because he's not even there, and all the new guys, Joey Bosa, whatever. It's the first game. Now it's November. And this Texans offensive line, if it's not the worst in the league, hi Seattle, it's one of the worst in the league. And this is a team that if the Bills cannot pressure CJ Stroud in this game, if they cannot affect the quarterback in this game, and it's middle of November, I'm going to have a lot of questions about Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, their eye for talent, and their ability to get a roster together and sink resources in appropriate spots to be able to affect the quarterback in meaningful games. So that's a game I'm watching very, very closely. I hope the Bills pull it out, obviously. So I have the Bills sitting right now, Luca, at 3-1, then 3-0, and then 3-2. The only difference is you had them going 4-1 in this stretch. The last stretch of the season, I'm going to go ahead and include the last game of the season with the Jets too. December 7th against the Bengals, and then December 14th at New England, who I think is going to be fighting for a wild card spot. December 21st at the Browns. That could be Shador Sanders time. December 28th, an absolute beauty. Eagles at Bills before ultimately closing out the Highmark Stadium regular season, at least, with a January 4th matchup with the red helmet game against the Jets. Luca, I have the Bills going 5-0 in this stretch. And the way my season goes is they hit a bit of a stumbling block in November. They go 3-2, they struggle. And there's a scary Bengals team coming to town that has had their number both in the regular season and the playoffs. And that is one of those galvanizing moments for the Bills where they not only prove to themselves that they can slow down the Bengals, but they're a better team than the Bengals. And that gives them the jolt that they need to make it through the next stretch. They are going to beat the Patriots in what I think is going to be a close game, but a game that also reminds them of we are still the king of the East. Maybe I actually would say that's probably the game where they ultimately wrap up the division. And then they'll beat the Browns in whatever it takes. Maybe ugly because it's the Browns, but who cares? And then they'll beat the Eagles at home. Tough matchup, obviously, at home, but I have these Bills rolling. I don't think the Bills will have the luxury with my predicted 3 losses so far to rest starters week 18 and still get the 1 seed. So I will think that they'll have to at least scoreboard watch for a half and get that game to the garage against the Jets. But that could be Tyrod Taylor time. It could be Brady Cook time for the Jets. You just don't know. I don't think the Bills are going to lose that game, particularly if they need it. So I have the Bills finishing the season with 3 losses and holy cow, Luca, 14 wins. How do you see December/January going for the Bills?
So December/January will go in a way where, Josh, I will say, we ended up at the same loss count. There's a loss in this stretch. I agree with the Bengals matchup. I agree wholeheartedly. That is going to be one of these showcases of, and I think the Bengals are going to be fighting, of course, for a wild card. I believe the Ravens are still going to be the class of that division. The Bengals path will be trying to secure a wild card spot. There's going to be competition. We saw them, of course, just miss out last season. That will be kind of a situation where it'll be elevated. It'll have an elevated feel to it. Could potentially be a game, Josh. Also, fun fact that we are attending. We will see. But then from there, I think the Bills take over. Where the loss comes in is that week after. There has to be a time that this Bills team doesn't win all the division games. There has to be a moment. And really, in my opinion, you said it. The Patriots are going to be fighting for a wild card spot as well. And if there's a spot where they can actually build on confidence and things are going, their schedule is great. And also just a little bit peek under the hood. It's a good stretch right before this game. Vibes could be phenomenal as you have now a 3/4 of the way confident Drake May and Mike Vrabel's message is really getting across. That defense is figuring it out. They have some other guys that I won't say yet because their names could be coming up later as well. I really do think that will be a little bit of a bump in the road for the Bills. I think, like you said, it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a hard fought game. That Sunday 1:00 slate in New England after a big win against the Bengals the previous week on a 425 Fox spot. It sets up where caution is finally provided within the division where it's like, okay, these Patriots have something going on right now. Something is real over there in New England. It's not enough, of course, to overtake the division this year, but I think that game could be one that sends a little bit of a message to the Bills overall, and I do think they get that win. Then it's a good time to have the Browns on the schedule, take care of business there. I do believe they beat the Eagles week 17. That one feels like one where I could forecast it'll be a weird one, in my opinion. Watch out just for anyone paying attention. That could be one where you have starters from both sides resting a little bit because potentially it won't affect their standings beyond the 1 seed for overall record. So depending on where things stand, how that game is going, whatever it is, they might already understand that they need the week 18 result more so than the week 17 result, and therefore could create that awkward little bit of a lull there. That's where I think the NFL kind of fucked up. Pardon my French.
It's a weird spot for a heavyweight AFC NFC matchup. Very
Exactly.
weird.
Very, very strange. Then week 18, I am with you too. I think we will get to see Josh Allen more than one snap in a red helmet, folks. They will need to at least play that first half. If they take care of business and really put the foot down in the first half, you might then see Mitch Trubisky come out in the second half because things are going well. And as you said, it's probably Tyrod time at that point in time for the Jets or whatever else is going on. They'll get the win there. So yeah, I in this stretch 4-1, they finished the season 14-3. We got to the same end place with a little bit of a difference, but overall, yeah, that's where I think it stands by the season end.
So 14-3, both have the Bills winning the AFC East. Let's quickly go through the other divisions now, Luka. AFC North. I gave some thought to the Bengals. I just can't get there. I love Joe Burrow. I think for my money, outside of Mahomes, Joe Burrow is the scariest quarterback when the Bills are playing against him. And I love Lamar. To me, those are the 4 elite quarterbacks. But Joe Burrow is just a little scarier than Lamar. But that defense is just terrible, and the offensive line is shaky. The roster does not compare to the Ravens, and I think over 17 games, the Bengals will win that or will not win that division, but they'll be right there for a wild card.
Yeah, I can't even come close with putting anyone else other than the Ravens there. The Ravens are clearly the class of that division. The Bengals, I will give the flowers to Joe Burrow as well. Joe Burrow is one of those guys I truly respect. I love everything that's said out there about him because I've always kind of felt that way, but didn't really know how to put it in context. And now you hear individuals, even like Jamar Chase, although you take that with a grain of salt, it's his teammate, but the words of saying that you can't really game plan, a full 100% Joe Burrow. And I genuinely believe that to be true. Joe Burrow is the kind of guy that can dice you up any given day as long as he's at his full brain, full health. Everything's good. If he's good, he will kill you. There's no game planning you can do for that. Nothing. He gets it at a cerebral level, and he can do everything athletically and physically that he needs to make it happen. He is a very impressive quarterback. It's a very unique individual that it feels like you can even game plan for a Mahomes and a Lamar more so, and even a Josh Allen for that matter, than a Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow really does kind of understand the position better than pretty much anyone else. It's just the team around him kind of lets him down way too much. Tell me if you've heard that before. But yeah, the AFC North feels like it's the Ravens for sure.
AFC West has been the Chiefs the last few years. There's some steam on the Broncos this year. Pete Carroll is in Vegas. I mean, that's a good coaching division, especially with Jim Harbaugh in LA. But God, I think we are drastically overthinking this thing. I saw on DraftKings Sportsbook that the Chiefs are minus 110 to win the division, like almost even money to win the division. What are we doing? Give me like $200 on the Chiefs right now. What? I mean, the Bills, you lose money if you bet on them. The Chiefs are even money. Why are we doing this? I do like the Broncos. I don't think I like them as much as the public does, but I do like the Broncos. Chargers, boy, that Rashawn Slater injury is going to be so hard to overcome. They're lucky they got Joe Alt last year, but that's tough. And then the Raiders are just not ready. To me, it's the Chiefs.
The point I'm with you. The point I think that needs to be said with the Broncos is the success of their season last year is absolutely valid to a point, but even you look at it and you understand what they did. I mean, they basically beat all the little guys, and then when the big boys were up, they couldn't win those games. That was their entire season. The one that I've put a little bit of an asterisk to is the Chiefs. But then again, it's the Chiefs. It's a divisional game. Weird stuff happens. Of course, the block field goal is the one that I'm referring to. It's the freaky stuff like that happens. But they go to Baltimore and they get absolutely pounded. They had no business being on the field with that team. They played the Chargers and they were losing that game. They played the Bengals and they lose that game. They of course play the Bills in the wild card. They have that opening score, and then it was like, yep, you're not even getting anywhere close to the plus 25 ever again. Like, you're not doing anything. And because of that. And then I think their defense, as good as it is, and I think they're very, very good. Of course, you have the reigning defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain. Although, God, it took TJ Watt basically being off for a month to win that award. I think there's just so much around that, and people just over projecting Bo Nix in season 2 that it's like, guys, if you could pair a quarterback and a head coach together, who would you take in this league? Boy, it really probably is Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, isn't it? They have a little bit more of a track record to show you that they're going to succeed. So why would you go against it? The Slater injury to the Chargers kind of takes them out. And I like Pete Carroll. I liked him drafting Ashton Genty. You're going to get those old school Seattle vibes, it feels like, there, while also having Geno Smith, who is an indoor quarterback. There is a notable statistic with Geno Smith out there, by the way, which is really funny because he played in Seattle, but indoor and outdoor, he's a significantly better quarterback indoor. So that will be nice, being that the Raiders play indoors, but it's not going to be enough to win the division. Don't overthink it, people. And if the line is -110 for betting purposes, we cannot tell you how to spend your money, but it feels like a pretty damn good bet to put a significant chunk of change on the Chiefs to win this one, because that is a way overcorrection to how things actually stand.
And then the last division, the AFC South, the defending champions are the Houston Texans. I went back and forth on this one, Luca. I almost picked the Colts. I do not love this Texans roster. We talked about their offensive line deficiencies earlier in the show. I think their defense is excellent, both in a secondary standpoint. I love their corners. And then I think they have one of the best defensive lines, especially on the edges in the entire sport. But I don't know. If I look at the two rosters taking quarterback out of the mix, I would take the Colts roster over the Texans, just because I think it's a more complete roster. I hate what they've done with their offensive line, and I absolutely love Nico Collins. I think he's just a fantastic player. But ultimately, this feels like overthinking. The Colts, to me, kind of reek of a drought Billsian team, where the roster looks great, but it's like, if only they had a quarterback, and they just keep coming up with terrible ideas. Like, let's get a washed up Phillip Rivers. Let's get a washed up Matt Ryan. Let's give Gardner Minshew a shot. Let's draft a really raw, toolsy quarterback and give him like 10 starts and then give up on him. And then let's go to Daniel Jones. I'm not going to sit here in September and predict the Daniel Jones team to beat the CJ Stroud team that's coached by DeMeco Ryan. So that's ultimately where I land. I'm taking the Texans, but I think whoever wins this division could very easily be one and done.
See, I love, and this is, a little bit of foreshadowing. It's now coming to light here, people. I love that you were trying to understand, could this be the time that the Texans maybe fall back, and could it be the Colts' time? Your head, to me, felt like it was in the right place, because one of those things you mentioned, who is a division winner to fall back this year? I believe the Texans to be that. I believe there is something in that division that could overtake the Texans. It's not the Colts, and it's not the Prince of Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that the Titans need to kind of get a little bit of a look here. There is something very strange going on with Tennessee this year. And it starts with, they had the first overall pick in Cam Ward, who absolutely deserved to be the first overall pick. Now, is he Andrew Luck going into the draft? No. Okay. He's not generational, but he's a very good quarterback. There's a reason Josh put money on him to be the first overall pick in October of last year's college football season. He is a very, very good quarterback, but he is getting absolutely no buzz. And I mean, no buzz. There's memes out there talking about if a fire struck the facility, how cool he'd be walking out, because he's just that little of a personality. And therefore, that's probably driving the least amount of buzz it is. But on top of all of that, their offensive line is sneaky decent, if not significant. And I just look at their interior three. Peter Skoronski, who's a young up-and-coming guard that is nice. You have Lloyd Cushenberry III as their center, and then Kevin Zeitler is sitting there at their right guard spot. That's a sneaky decent interior three, in my opinion. I mean, Zeitler's a great player in his own right. So the other two, as long as they can continue to just do what they need to do, you're protecting Cam Ward. You have Calvin Ridley, who's a very good dynamic offensive player. You have Tyler Lockett coming in, who is an individual that, look, Is he a world beater and going to be a phenomenal number 2 like he was in Seattle at its prime? No, but he's going to be reliable and dependable, and he will be there because we've seen almost to a fault how he likes to stay healthy. Van Jefferson is there as their 3 in the slot, and Van can make impact plays as we have seen when he was a Ram. Tony Pollard is no slouch at running back. And then their defense is just one of those ones where it's just all around okay. But the point here is the AFC South is the worst division in football. It is like, I don't think there's an argument against that. So from there, we talked about or you talked about, and we talked about it. The Texans offensive line has serious questions. You don't exactly need an elite defensive line and all of that to get at CJ Stroud. And I like CJ Stroud. I like Nico Collins. I think Will Anderson has absolute potential on their defense as well, for what it's worth, to be a defensive player of the year candidate this year. I almost bet him to be my defensive player of the year. Spoiler alert, he's not going to be who I select later on in the show. But overall, I just think there's too many question marks with the Texans that things are going to come up short. And it almost gets this vibe like a script flip is going to happen. And you're going to see a rookie first round pick quarterback in that division kind of come out of nowhere. Although, boy, that's so weird for a first overall pick. Come out of nowhere and really take the reins and take it late into the season. And next thing you know, we're going to be sitting there watching a game late in December. And it's like, holy shit, if the Titans win this game, and who knows if it's a road game in Houston late in the season, that'd be hilarious. And all of a sudden that win propels them to a division win. And I actually, for whatever crazy reason, believe your worst to first candidate for a division winner this season, people, if you follow that, will be the Tennessee Titans. There's just something going on there.
All right. So we disagree on one division. I have all 4 AFC teams repeating. I'm gonna go a little quicker through the NFC here. We have NFC East. Look, I guess if you want to make a case for the Commanders, you can. I love what they have going there with Jaden Daniels, but it's just hard right now unless you just want to sit here and predict injuries to pick against the Eagles. I'm not going to do it. I'm taking the Eagles.
Eagles. I mean, come on. What? Jeez. Did anyone watch the Super Bowl the last time they played a meaningful game? Yeah, no, it's Eagles.
NFC North is going to be where my division winner to fall back is going to be, and I don't know that Detroit's going to fall all the way back to not making the playoffs. I do think people are sleeping on them from a standpoint of their defense was just torn to shreds from injury standpoint last year. I do think they're going to lose a little bit offensively without Ben Johnson calling plays. I do wonder about, is Jared Goff going to finally like wake up from this kind of 2 or 3 year run he's been on and realize, oh shit, I'm still Jared Goff. But there was a massive trade made last week, Luka, and I'm trying not to make my entire prediction based on that. But like when that happened and that trade was made, it totally influenced who I'm picking. And obviously, I'm talking about Adam Thielen getting traded back to the Vikings. I am taking the Minnesota Vikings to win this division. I love their roster. I love what they've done with upgrading their offensive line. I'm not a Sam Darnold believer. I'm a massive Kevin O'Connell believer. I know you are even more so than I. I think JJ McCarthy is a good enough prospect that Kevin O'Connell is going to get way more out of him than he got out of Sam Darnold. I do worry about not having Jordan Addison for the first 4 games, 6 games, I forget, 4 games. But I think they're set up decently with Thielen and Naylor and Hawkinson and a good running game with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is a beast. But ultimately speaking, I think this is a team that when they upgrade their offensive line this offseason, they're going to be able to play a more physical brand of January football when they go against the big boys like Philadelphia. And I think that this is a team that has a chance to go as far as they want to go this year. And it's going to start with winning their division. How do you see the NFC North going?
I love you going to the Vikings as you know, the team that should kind of keep going because it does feel great. I will say I'm not a huge fan at all of their backfield, and that's where I get paused with them a little bit. I'm just like Aaron Jones is fine. Also, fun fact: Addison is a 3-game suspension.
Okay, so he's fine.
So he's fine, but it's still notable. I mean, Addison is of course a very important player to that offense. So those first 3 games, they're gonna have to figure that out. I mean, that's why they traded for Adam Thielen in the first place. So I like that. It's just the backfield has a little bit of question marks, and it always feels like their defense leaves me a little bit wanting more. It's not like the old days with them where their defense you knew would be a reliable machine, be very opportunistic with the turnovers, things like that. I mean, they have guys that I like Byron Murphy, former Cardinal, that I think is a great slot corner in this league. I don't think he's exceptional, but I think he's solid. He just has also his issues as well. He's no Taron Johnson. But it's I can't give it to the Vikings, and I will just leave the second point here. I'm going with the Lions because I think the pendulum has just swung too much with that Micah Parsons trade. There is way too much going on now on the Packers. I mean, look, I get it. A player chose, number one for the first time since Curly Lambeau since 1926 was the last time a Packer wore the number one. Didn't think I was going to be bringing those stats now, did you there, Josh? But Curly Lambeau is not walking through that door, as well as the NFL isn't exactly what it was when Curly Lambeau was stepping on the field as a quarterback. What was it? Quarterback, running back, and punter, I believe he was. Maybe he was kicker instead. I don't know. Anyways, the Packers are still good. Jordan Love, as much as I want to like him, too many question marks for me. The receivers, as much as we've talked about, it's awesome that they've taken the approach that they have. It feels like, Matthew Golden, finally a first round pick's in there, but it's year one for him. So I'm not exactly, as you shouldn't, you're not depending on an individual to make impact plays right out the gate to the point where he's supporting your entire receiving group. So from there, you kind of just take it as the group as it is. It's still just a big group of question marks to the point of what, man, it's hard to have any of them in fantasy because who knows what they're going to do from a week to week basis. The Lions are still the Lions, and people keep forgetting, and you brought this up, and I think you said it so perfectly before we hit record. The Lions defense is got this weird thing where it's like it was terrible last season. It was Swiss cheese. It was brutal. And it's like, do we forget that they had one of the best secondaries just get depleted by injuries? Do we forget that Aiden Hutchinson was well on the fast track? And I mean, well on the fast track for Defensive Player of the Year until he had his leg injury and was out for the season. I mean, I believe he had 7.5 sacks through 3 weeks and change. I think that's what his stat line was at. It might have been helped with a 4-sack game, but a 4-sack game helped early on. He's a very, very good player. The defensive line was very good. There's so much that's coming back from them in that regard that I don't believe losing coordinators are going to make as big of an impact as it feels like the general public wants to believe it. I am with you on Jared Goff gets a little bit too much love lately, and it's like maybe coming down to earth matters. But there's another individual I'll bring up later on in this show shortly that is going to be the sole reason, Josh, in my opinion, on why the Lions are going to continue winning the division. And he is the impact player for those Detroit Lions moving forward. And it'll give Lions fans a little bit of an early 90s vibes of what's going on there and everything it takes to win the division and hopefully get them to the promised land finally. But overall, yeah, the Lions to me are the class of the North until proven otherwise. There is a lot of competition otherwise. The only one that's not there is the Bears, and it's just comical because even then they get Ben Johnson. You have Caleb, of course. If I like the things they're doing going into this season, but look, there are titans in your division right now. You are not greater than Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings. You're not greater than Micah Parsons and the Packers. That's a fun thing that entered your division. And you're most certainly not better than the Lions, who have one of the better rosters in the entire league.
I agree on all fronts there. I'm going to go to the NFC West. Last year's defending champs is the Rams. To me, this is the most wide open division. The only team I don't really give a shot to is Seattle. I hate their offensive line. I'm not a Sam Darnold believer. And they got rid of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett this offseason. That puts a lot on JSN, and Kenneth Walker's dealing with an injury that seems to be lingering into the regular season. Just bad vibes all around for that team. If I knew Matt Stafford was going to be healthy all year, I would confidently pick the Rams. I'm going to cautiously pick the Rams. I don't like the vibes around the Niners at all. Whether it's Brandon Ayuk's injury that feels like it is going to be something that lingers into this year, and maybe affects his ability to ever get back to what we thought he was going to be. The Juwan Jennings situation is just weird. They did lose Debo Samuel, putting a lot on Ricky Pearsall. I love Christian McCaffrey, but you're at a point now where you're trading for Brian Robinson to be his backup because you just don't believe in the guys behind him. You got rid of Jordan Mason. Isaac Garendo apparently showed you this summer he's not the guy. You and I talked about off air. It feels like Kyle Shanahan could be starting to run out of favor there, similar to like John Gruden in Tampa, where it came in as like this golden boy and then kind of worked his way out of town with his ego. It feels like maybe that's happening with Shanahan. And I don't love the defense in San Francisco anymore. And that's weird to say because for years they were so stacked on defense. I just don't love it. So I'm going to go with the Rams. I love their pick from last year, Jared Verse. How could you not like Puka Nakua? And Devontae Adams is just such a massive upgrade over what they were getting out of Cooper Kupp last year. That I do think that the Rams are the cream of the crop there. But I will say this: the Cardinals are interesting. They have a sneaky good power running game. They have what I think is going to be a superstar in the making in Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he is going to come on the scene in a massive way this season. I think Kyler's going to have one of his best years, if not ever, in recent memory. And I don't know that their defense, top to bottom, is necessarily equipped to win enough games over the course of a season to beat out what I think the Rams can be if Stafford stays healthy. If Stafford's not healthy, I would take the Cardinals. But I'm like, I wouldn't bet it, but at picking a team today, I'd pick the Rams.
Well, I'm going to bet it. The Arizona Cardinals are winning the NFC West. This is not a homer pick. Let me just boom, 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 boom. I do believe the Rams, if Matt Stafford in a tube was fully 100%, there were no question marks about his back or anything going on. It wasn't an uncertainty. It feels like we're 1 foot into the reality of Jimmy G is going to be starting for the Rams, which, side note, if Jimmy G plays significant snaps for the Rams, how fun would this be? We need the Niners to be relevant. And then we need an NFC championship game to be the Rams and Niners with Jimmy G on the Rams.
I got you covered in about 5 minutes, by the way. Spoiler alert. You're going to love where my head's at.
Yeah. And then you watch that play out. Holy shit, would I love that scenario.
I would love it if the Bills are waiting in the Super Bowl for either Jimmy G or the Niners.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, that I don't believe will happen, though. And I do think they're going to try to limber on with Matt Stafford, as they should. If he's at 80%, you're still going with Matt Stafford, of course. The arm talent is way too damn good. And he's not dumb. But the Cardinals are in an interesting spot where this has all the makings of Kyler needs to show us something. Kyler, you need to show us that you're worth the contract we gave you, because ever since then, there has been an injury, of course, which you can't fault the player, but you really haven't shown anything. And it feels like it's stalling out and going nowhere. And their offensive line has continued to be a little bit better. It's not great. It's not even really solid. It's better though. Paris Johnson now has a full offseason as your starting left tackle. I think he's a great left tackle. He will continue to be great. The receivers, you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. You got good old Bills legend Zay Jones in the slot currently at the moment. That's an interesting one. But Michael Wilson, I do believe, is kind of that underrated number 2 guy. Trey McBride is one of the best tight ends in this league. The power run game is absolutely where it all starts with James Conner. Also watch out for Trey Benson, though. It does feel like a lot of good vibes are going from him. Fantasy purpose wise, I highly recommend anyone to stash him. Trey Benson feels like someone that could absolutely flip the script and get majority of carries. What I wanted to bring up, though, is the defense. You brought up the question mark with the defense. The defense kind of feels like a forgotten thing with the Cardinals, and you just feel like you're going to get everything you're going to get. Let me remind individuals, or just inform you, the Cardinals have first-round pick Darius Robinson, full health, coming back finally. He was irrelevant last year due to an injury. He is a very dominant defensive line player out of Mizzou. I like him a lot. I think him on it's kind of like the 3-4 DN, D tackle, whatever you want to call it, position. That's where he will be, with Calais Campbell having a homecoming. I'm not saying he's going to be an impact player, but Calais Campbell, he's just a big son of a bitch. The one that I don't think anyone really remembers, in the offseason, they brought in Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat and Rich Gannon know each other very well. Josh Gannon got a lot out of Josh Sweat. Rich Gannon got a lot out of Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat finally gives this defense some significant pass rush, in my opinion. And then Zaven Collins is no one to sneeze opposite side of him. And Mac Wilson Sr., I do like him as an inside 3-4 linebacker. I think he is very athletic and was very good for them last year. And Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker are one of the best safety duos in this league. They are not talked about enough. Jalen Thompson makes a lot of plays for being someone that you never hear the name of, it feels like. Budda is a very known commodity. Of course, he is getting a little bit older, but he still is an absolute bowling ball and a wrecking machine at that safety position. I think Max Melton was actually surprisingly decent last year as a rookie. That I think you're going to see some surprise performances out of this Cardinals defense as a whole. They, of course, like everyone else, need to stay healthy. And I believe if they do, Josh, we are going to be in a reality where the Cardinals win the division, which, spoiler alert, if the Cardinals, fun fact, Josh, if the Cardinals and Bills win the divisions respectively, we will have a Bills-Cardinals matchup next year, which absolutely needs to happen for my world to be happy. So I do, homerism aside, believe the Cardinals will win the NFC West this season.
We are about an hour in, and we have not even finished division, Super Bowl, so we're gonna speed through this a little bit quicker. We have, NFC South. I am not gonna take the Bucks. I'm gonna go Falcons. I think this is a division that could go any one of really 3 ways. I like the Panthers that much. I do think the Bucks are probably a little bit above them, but I like the Falcons. I like what I saw out of Michael Penix. I believe in their head coach, Raheem Morris. Interested in what they did in the draft. They went out and they drafted James Pierce. They also went out and got Jalen Walker. I like their secondary with Jesse Bates. And then obviously at cornerback, they have one of the best cornerbacks in the entire sport, and AJ Terrell. So I look at their offense. They have plenty of weapons. I'm not factoring in Kyle Pitts in that whatsoever. I like what I saw out of Michael Penix. I think the Falcons just find a way to kind of outpace the rest of the field there. They also have former Bill Leonard Floyd to rush the passer. Just enough there to win the division. I think it could very easily be one of those 10-7 division winners, though.
I'm picking up on the speed at the F up, Luka. Real quick, I talked about Tampa a bunch earlier. Tampa's going to win this division. I don't see it anywhere else. Tampa, Baker and Bucky are enough to get this over the line for the Bucks in a weaker division that is the NFC South. So yeah, I'm going with Tampa.
And kind of like the Chiefs, they get Chris Godwin back midseason. I know he's on their roster, but they're going to ease him back. That's a massive boost for their team, like the Chiefs are going to get with Rice, where they get basically a very good playmaker back midseason to help their offense. That'll be interesting to watch. NFC Championship game, Luka, I'll go first. I have a matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the aforementioned Minnesota Vikings. I am going to have this one. I'm going to really go on a limb here. I think this game's going to be in Philadelphia. Early in that game, JJ McCarthy is going to get knocked out of that game, unfortunately.
I see
Who's the backup quarterback in? Let me look at Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz. This is weird. I think Carson Wentz comes in, wins the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, not like some like 45-40 thing. I think it's going to be one of those classic Philadelphia, we expect to dominate you and all we do is throw up all over ourselves. And Carson Wentz wins with like some ugly like 17-14 just bloodbath. I love what the Vikings have built on defense. I love their interior of their defensive line. I love what they have on the edges. I think that they are just built for January football. I have a feeling about them this year that I can't shake. I'm just kidding about the JJ McCarthy injury. I mean, that would be poetic justice, but I certainly can't sit here and predict it. I just think that while sitting here in September, I think looking at the Eagles roster, they're better. There's enough on the Vikings and there's enough upside with players like McCarthy, like Dallas Turner from last year, and looking at players like Hargrave they have in the middle, Jonathan Allen that really beefs up their interior defensive line. I'm fascinated by what goes on there, and I mentioned it before. I love their coach. I think he's absolutely a talent maximizer. I think in a one-game sample size, they can get it done and beat the Eagles, and that's what I have going on.
I love it. I think JJ McCarthy will probably have a little bit more growing pains in those big moments than probably you are banking on. But I mean, I love Kevin O'Connell as much as anyone else. I mean, he is my favorite coach in this league. I would pay anything to have him on a team that I support greater than just respecting from afar. But that is not where I'm going. My NFC Championship will also be hosted in Philadelphia, but it will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming to visit. There is just too much that I respect out of Baker and that offense and how they operate. And I believe they can take anyone on any given day and they will be able to make a run, but they will not be beating the Eagles in Philadelphia in an NFC Championship format. That will not be happening. They don't have enough for that. The Eagles will be winning the NFC Championship in that matchup, so they will be returning to the Super Bowl there, Josh.
In the AFC, we both have the Bills winning their division. We both have the Bills going 14-3. I have the Bills getting the 1 seed. I have the Bills hosting the AFC Championship game, and I have the Bills closing out Highmark Stadium with a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift. Shocker, shocker, Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game. I have the Bills winning this game, and I just at some point, man, the worms gotta turn. These games have come down to one play, one drop, one missed field goal. These teams are too even, and I don't know that the Bills have to blow out the Chiefs to get it done, but at some point, and maybe it's just the good juju of the last game at Highmark is enough to get the Bills over the hump. One of these years, as Deion Dawkins said on the Nick Wright Show, it's gonna be their year. Why not this year? They're certainly equipped to beat the Chiefs. I don't think this is the best version of the Chiefs we have seen, and I have the Bills getting it done, probably in painfully close fashion in Buffalo, and they send out Highmark with a bang. And Luka, if they win the AFC Championship game in the last game at Highmark, those goalposts are coming down, right?
Probably, yeah.
Fans are rushing the field, I assume.
Yeah, God, and you know what's funny about that, Josh? I think in pros, anything and stuff like that, like fan rushing, it's just so weird. Like
Yeah.
college, I love it because it's generally student sections and stuff like that. Like you're immersed in the moment and things like that. And college just has an emotional thing to it that it's just the night, the simple nature of it, I guess is the way to put it. It just can get you caught up in it and blah blah blah. In a in a pro setting, it feels weird, but I absolutely see what you're seeing. And if it happens in close fashion, and spoiler alert, I believe it will. And I also believe the result will be the same. I do also have it being Bills over Chiefs. It will finish with I'm just going to call my shot. It's going to finish with a Bosa sack, essentially sealing it up. Bosa will finally remain healthy for majority of the season. I'm not going to say he's remaining healthy for the entire season. Like there's too much of a track record saying that will not happen, but he will be there when it matters. And that's all that matters. And he will get it done. We finally have someone that is used to being in those big moments. Go get it. Pin your ears back. He will seal the deal. That will make things happen. We will be seeing the Bills in my world matching up with the Eagles, in your world matching up with the Vikings in the Super Bowl. And if the field goal post came down, Josh, I mean, I'll let it slide. And even in my weird feelings about that in a pro game.
Yeah, you say that now, and then like we're watching our TVs in January. I'm like, who's that long haired guy tearing
There's
down the goalposts?
no long
Oh
hair
yeah, you cut your
anymore.
hair.
Come
That's
on
right.
now.
Come on, Josh, be better. All right, Bills Vikings Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be unfortunately very anticlimactic for Bills fans because I think that this dream of when the Bills finally make it back to the Super Bowl, they're going to win it in heroic fashion. Josh Allen makes a play late to win it, makes everybody happy. Like there's some memorable play, like a Taron Johnson pick six against the Ravens that you just look at. And as much as I have glazed the Vikings in this particular episode and talked about them, I have a feeling that if this is the matchup, it will be just a feeling, and it's a one game sample size. I think it'll be a comfortable Bills win, and the kind of win that by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, every Bills fan will be sitting there watching that game wherever they're at with their family, taking it all in, understanding what the next 15 minutes of football is going to mean for them. Maybe the Vikings get a touchdown to cut it to 2 scores, and you're just hoping they don't get the onside kick. But then you kind of bring yourself back to, oh my God, this is going to happen. And it's one of those comfortable wins where you can just enjoy the game and you could enjoy everything, the clock counting down, players jumping up and down on the sidelines, McDermott getting a Gatorade bath, everything you've dreamt about. The final score will not be what we dreamed of, where like Tyler Bass makes the field goal instead of Scott Norwood missing it. By the time you might even get some Trubisky plays with Josh Allen coming off the field
Jeez.
late. Bills win big, 35-17, and hoist the Lombardi for the first time.
Why did I have to go second? If it's Bills Eagles, like in my world, it's gonna feel great that we're in this game.
Oh my
And
God.
I even said the Bills will be beating the Eagles week 17.
So we
But
got that going for us.
It's gonna, you know what? I'm gonna hit you with an NBA comp. It's gonna be like the Detroit Pistons finally got by the Boston Celtics, the Larry Bird Celtics. They finally got by them, and now you're in the finals. You're playing another monster team. This is, it's not exactly Lakers Phillies, but you're playing the Lakers, and it's all of a sudden like, well, shit, we just came up short. Something happened, and we didn't win. After finally getting over that foe, getting over that hurdle, the Eagles are just so damn good, and it is so hard to repeat. Let me repeat that. It is so hard to repeat. But if there is a team that is set up to do so, the Eagles roster, top to bottom, is just so damn good. And that defense is just so damn special, honestly. And it's young and hungry for more success, that if this is the matchup that it is, I do believe that the Bills would come up just short. I think it would be a great game. I'm not saying that the Eagles are going to blow them out of the water like we saw with the Eagles Chiefs, but Josh Allen can only get them so far, and this will be yet another unfortunate reality check to that, as you see a dominant roster of the Eagles sadly come home with another Lombardi at the expense of the Bills this go around. And I didn't want, when you just started rolling, I'm like, shit, I gotta go second, and I gotta explain this one. But I'm sorry that it's not a fairy tale. But if I want to go back to that NBA comp, the following season for the Detroit Pistons was pretty damn good. So, hey, maybe that's what it takes. You just need that one more year. You get the new stadium, Josh, and then you have all these real good vibes going, and then you roll it into a championship from there. Who knows? We'll have to predict that next year, and you'll have to hear me say it if that is what I believe it to be. But unfortunately, I just don't see it if it's Bills Eagles. I hope to God it is Bills Vikings, because I would share your thoughts twofold on exactly how that would go. I think the Bills would be too good for the Vikings. I even at one point thought the Bucks would beat the Eagles if that somehow took place, and the Bills would absolutely dominate the Bucks in that scenario with the Super Bowl on the line, even though I just had them losing to them in the regular season. Again, it's the Bucks sneak up on you, but there's no sneaking up on you in the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. So, sorry. I do have the Eagles over Bills.
It can't be all bad if we both have the Bills going to the Super Bowl, but I don't want to live in a world where Bills fans tear down the goalpost and then 2 weeks later they lose the Super Bowl. I mean, what a meme we would be. Let's quickly go through our predictions for all the awards. MVP, we're sharing a brain. I have a feeling what I'm going to say on my pick is going to be a lot of what you're going to say on your pick. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. And look, I don't know that he's going to have the best statistical season. In fact, I would predict that would be Joe Burrow, potentially even Dak Prescott, because a lot of that comes down to who has the most opportunity to throw. And those guys are going to have defenses that keep them in situations where they have to throw all 4 quarters, where Josh Allen and Mahomes get to run the ball a lot in the 4th quarter. That's just the reality of pro sports. But when you look at the history of the MVP, 2012 was the last time it didn't go to a quarterback. So I feel like we've seen now in the last 2 years with Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley having record-setting years, not even getting a sniff of the award, that now we know it's going to go to a quarterback. What else do we know? It's going to go to a quarterback of a top 3 seed. That's been the trend also in recent years. I think the last quarterback to get it that wasn't a top 3 seed was Peyton Manning when he split it with Steve McNair. So I look at all that, and then I think about, okay, why not Josh Allen? Why not Lamar Jackson? Well, look, I love Josh Allen and I love Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen's my favorite player, maybe in the history of sports. I think you could make a very strong case that Lamar Jackson had a better year last year. I am of the belief, Luca, that sometimes these voters think more long term with their votes versus who had the actual best year. I believe that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson both will basically have to make wine out of water to win another MVP prior to making it to a Super Bowl. They have to have that defining playoff moment before these people are going to put them, Lamar with 3, Josh with 2, in that same conversation as the elite of the elite. Now, if they have a year that is just undeniably so much better than everybody else, maybe not, but I don't think that's going to happen. So now you start looking at who could be the top 3 seeds in each division. Well, I do think Josh and Lamar are going to take up 2 of those. I think that's going to rule out Joe Burrow because you have to get to a point where you think the Bengals are going to win that division or else he's not a top 3 seed. You look at the NFC, yeah, the Eagles could win their division, but everybody thinks Saquon Barkley is the best player on that team. I had it as the Vikings. Luka had it as the Lions. They're probably going to be a top 3 seed, but does anybody see JJ McCarthy or Jared Goff being MVP? I don't. And then you start looking down the line. I mean, Stafford would have to have a year of all years. So then it comes back to Patrick Mahomes. And every time this offseason, Patrick Mahomes has won an award or been number 1 in the PFF voting, it's been like, huh, he's kind of fallen off. Oh, dad bod Patrick Mahomes. And every time I hear it, I'm just like, flinch. What are we doing? Patrick Mahomes, I don't want to say that. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes is the first guy since Tom Brady that made me feel like somebody's going to catch Tom Brady. That's what I want to say. I think he's going to retire as a Mount Rushmore quarterback, and he might already be there. Um, don't forget how good this guy is. And the other thing I'll say is after 6 weeks, he's going to have Rashee Rice and Worthy. And I do think, I mean, Kelsey, he's falling off, but he's falling off from such a high place that his fall off is still a top 10 tight end in the sport comfortably. I don't think they're going to have the same running game this year with Pacheco. He looked like a shell of himself. Kareem Hunt's like 35 years old, it feels like. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have I'm going to remind you all who daddy is kind of year from both a statistical standpoint and just an on field success standpoint. And I think if the numbers are close, it's going to go to Mahomes because that is one guy the voters can give it to, and they don't mind giving him more to his legacy because his legacy is already cemented. Patrick Mahomes is my MVP. Luka, we were talking off the air. I know we share a brain. I have a feeling we share the same thought process. At the risk of just saying the same thing, I just wanted to say all of my thoughts, and there's probably some things that I didn't say in there. So what do you got?
You said it all well. I'll just keep it simple, short and sweet, because I love to do a bet. If I haven't mentioned it before, or you haven't heard me mention it before, I love to do every year in August. I sit there whenever I somehow end up in PA because you can't bet these individual awards in New York. Don't get it, but whatever. And I like to do MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. That's where I'm pulling these from if you're not aware. And I laid there, and it's 2 things. 1, anyone outside the top 4, the big 4, is not winning the MVP. I'm sorry. And the big 4, of course, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. Those 4 individuals in the NFL for MVP purposes are just head and shoulders above everyone else. It's the nature of the beast. And sadly, they're all in the AFC. 2, MVP is a narrative award. That is what it is. You have to be a great player, a great quarterback on a top tier team and have a narrative to go along with it. That was great. It's a great story. Josh Allen won thanks to that last year. That is exactly what happened. Any Bills fan that tells you otherwise, I think is a borderline delusional. It was a narrative award and he deserved it. He showed once again why he was an MVP quarterback. There were years prior that he probably should have won it that were greater than the season he gave you last season. But last season was finally the one that got it to voters' heads. He has everything that's an MVP. He had an MVP-like season. He backpacked once again, exceeded expectations, and got it. Patrick Mahomes has a rare thing in his career arc right now going on where the expectations are somehow not sky high all of a sudden. He's not going. Are the Chiefs going for the 3-peat? Are they going for back-to-back? Is it yet another Super Bowl win for the Chiefs this year? They're kind of in this weird spot where the last time you saw them in a competitive game, it's like, holy shit, does Patrick Mahomes remember how to read a defense or throw a football or do anything? Are the Chiefs even good anymore? Can they do anything? Oh no, their number 1 receiver is going to be out for 6 weeks to start the season. Are they going to be able to recover from this? Is the AFC West the toughest conference or division in the history of the NFL when you look at coaches? They have Hall of Fame coaches up the lineup now. It's all of these things. And it's like, look, this is Patrick fucking Mahomes. And Andy Reid is probably even taking some of this personally. And he's going to show exactly what Patrick Mahomes is about. Are we going to see the high flying, bombs like we did with Reek? Probably not. That's just not what they do anymore. But you're going to see Patrick Mahomes at his full strength. And as long as he stays healthy, everything else is lined up. It just makes way too much damn sense. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the 2025 NFL MVP.
All right, we share a brain there. Offensive player of the year, we're sharing a brain as well. You've been on him
Whoa.
longer. You've been on him longer than me, so I'll let you take it. I'm going to co-sign everything you're going to say though with this player.
Yeah, look, we talked about the NFC North, and I was like talking about how Jared Goff might even come down to earth a little bit, but that defense is going to be great. And offensive player of the year, you still need to be on a great team. But there is going to be a guy who will finally shine. He is going to be not necessarily the quote unquote workhorse, but he's going to be the top dog in that offense. He is going to show why he is the most dynamic player on that roster. And he's going to give every Lions fan in this world flashbacks to Barry effing Sanders. That is no other than Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is probably a top 5 player for me personally to watch every weekend. He is so dynamic, so electric. And the only thing that's been holding him back is quite literally his coach and the game planning and David Montgomery. And finally, it feels like we're at a point here where it's like, holy shit, we can't keep this lightning in a bottle anymore. We need to unleash it. And I do believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is absolutely primed for a classic 1K, all-purpose yards, 20-plus touchdowns. He's going to be an absolute dynamite weapon for those Lions and be the sole reason that they still get over the line with the division to win it for the Lions. And again, I do believe narrative plays a little bit of a role as well in these awards. That's just the nature of the voters. And like you saw with Saquon Barkley, he went to a new team and the marriage felt so good. So the expectations were high and he exceeded them. Now it's like Jahmyr Gibbs is on the Lions and he's an absolute home run of a player, but they lost Ben Johnson. He was the reason that the offense was so good. It's like, no, that guy in the backfield, he's the reason they're going to be really effing good this year. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to win Offensive Player of the Year. He is unbelievable. And I honestly cannot wait for everyone knows who Jahmyr Gibbs is. He's getting drafted in the first round of fantasy leagues, but you're really going to see what Jahmyr Gibbs is after this season. I wholeheartedly believe that.
I agree with that. I have him as my pick. I have a Patrick Mahomes, Jahmyr Gibbs parlay. That's $10 to win like 110. So let's get it done. All right, no, it's more than that. It's like $10 to win like
I was going to say it should be a lot more because the 3 of these guys I have together would win 5 digits. So
yeah, that would be nice. We are going to move on to defensive player of the year. There's a couple picks I liked here. I was going to go with Jared Verse from the Rams, but ultimately what I look for when I'm picking defensive player of the year is I'm looking for a pass rusher because I do think that it's a sack or an interception award. And I look for somebody who's going to have a lot of opportunity to rush the passer. So, at one point this offseason, I was like, man, I love Greg Rousseau's odds because the Bills are going to have a lot of leads. They're going to be throwing a lot, but that feels just like a reach. I do like Jared Verse a lot. I do like your TJ Watt pick, but I'm going to go Micah Parsons. You want to talk about a story?
Yeah.
The reality of Green Bay's defense is if I were an offensive coordinator drawing up plays against them, knowing they just traded for Micah Parsons, I would still go out there and throw every down, knowing how bad their quarterback situation is. They gave away Jair Alexander. They lost Eric Stokes. They have nothing at defensive back. Teams are going to try to spread them out and throw the ball all over them. And that means that Micah Parsons is going to be able to rush the passer on a very, very high percentage of downs. And I think that he is going to be motivated to show the world what he's capable of. And I do think that if it's close, that the world's going to look at that and say, wouldn't that be cool for Micah Parsons to win DPOY and stick it to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys? So I'm going to go with Micah Parsons to win that. But I think he's going to earn it. I don't think it's going to be we're giving it to him because it's a cool story.
Yeah. Micah feels like he should absolutely be the favorite right now. If their stars aligning with it, that's the vibes you get with that pick. And I can fully understand if that's ultimately where it is. He's in a great situation. I will say I'm just very intrigued by how he's going to play no longer in Jerry World and now at Lambeau Field. That's a very different shift and where you have to play a majority of your games. Early on won't be much of a difference, but boy, he's probably going to be sitting there. It's like back-to-back home games. I don't know if this actually is on their schedule. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's like you got back-to-back home games in December at Lambeau Field. It's like, shit, we got to do this again. Single degrees. It's cold as that shit. The snow coming down. It's scenic. Oh, everyone loves it. It's like he's probably thinking, man, Jerry World was nice when it's, still 70 degrees, climate controlled, turf, can be fast as possible. Anyways, I agree with Defensive Player of the Year is truly, it's probably the most statistical driven award of all of the big three here. It's sacks or interceptions. I mentioned how TJ Watt, Patrick Surtain won thanks to kind of TJ Watt taking a month off and the Steelers taking a month off in December. That's why he won that. TJ Watt was a massive favorite going into the month of December. Fun fact last year. I'm still salty about it. I'm not going TJ Watt again, though. And my pick is a little bit of it's not a contrarian pick. It's not a little bit of a zag when you zig. But at the same time, it's not your conventional defensive lineman pick. It's not your true pass rush edge pick. It's not your Hutch. It's not your Max Crosby even. Jalen Carter. I love everything you said about Verse, by the way. He is probably my runner-up. I think Jared Verse is set up as well. The two young guys I'm going to be talking about here. But Jalen Carter has a very unique opportunity in front of him. Jalen Carter is a scary SOB. And he's on a Philly team that should be dominating a lot of games. I talked about how much I love their defense. He gives Josh a little bit of that twinkle of Aaron Donald vibes at times, even with games. He can disrupt games even greater than simply just rushing the passer from the inside. And there's something about him that you're on the most dominant defense in the league, which is what it feels like will be for the Eagles. And you are the main disruptor and the main problem leading the charge with that. The Eagles don't have that Micah Parsons or, that crazy edge rush dominant player like all of these other pass rush defenses have, the TJ Watt on the edge, Micah Parsons on the edge, Jared Verse on the edge. They don't have that. Their main staple is Jalen Carter, and he's good enough to dominate from his position that I think he's going to turn some heads even more so than what he has. He's going to show and go another level than he's already played. And Jalen Carter is going to be my guy that I do believe comes, the award season time, he will be your Defensive Player of the Year.
So for a defensive tackle, I think what you need the Ryan Clarks, the Dan Orlovskis, the Darius Butlers who break down film to basically come on every week and be like, this guy is the best defensive tackle in the sport. The same way they did for Aaron Donald, where
Yeah.
if nobody had a standout year, you could just give the award to Aaron Donald and nobody would argue it because the Eagles defense is going to be excellent. And if you get enough film junkie guys being like, and the reason they're excellent is because this guy is being double and triple teamed every play. I could certainly see that. He's definitely capable of that, and it'll bring back some massive annoyance of that draft when it was like, why did he follow the Eagles?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go to fantasy football player to rise in the first round, basically to a first round pick. Now, what does that mean? So there's usually 12 teams in a league. Who are the 12 players picked in the first round based on ADP? My guy right now is going anywhere from like 19 to 25. He's wide receiver 9. So it's not like I'm going out on a massive limb here, but I'm going to go with Drake London from the Atlanta Falcons. I don't necessarily think of Drake London in the same athletic tier as like a Jamar Chase or a CD Lamb. But I do think that the statistics he's going to put up this year are going to have him in the same conversation as those guys next year when you're doing your fantasy drafts. And my reason for that is very simple. I do think that the Falcons defense, while improved this year, relying on a lot of rookies, they are going to give up some points. They're going to be in a lot of shootouts in that NFC South, indoor games, good weather games, bad defenses up and down that division. And when you look at what the Falcons have going on offense, I am a Michael Penix believer, but outside of Drake London, who is he fighting for targets with? You're talking about Jamal Agnew, or you're talking about Darnell Mooney, who may not even play right off the bat to start the season. Kyle Pitts, that experiment has got to end. I thought he was going to be excellent in the league. He just can't get open against NFL cornerbacks, and he can't block well enough to not get matched up on a cornerback. So I think they're going to throw a lot, and they're going to throw a lot to Drake London, and he's going to be a massive, massive piece of that offense from a target distribution. And that's my prediction. Who is your fantasy sleeper, for lack of a better term?
I'll keep it quick because I'm not going to do breakdown on this individual, because when it comes to NFL film, there's not a lot of film to break down. It's hint number one. Josh, if I told you that the individual I am about to name here is an ADP right now on Sleeper, overall, standard leagues 63rd overall, PPR 53rd overall, and currently consensus among all different platforms, he does not really even break when it comes to his own position group as the 20th individual. But I am sitting here to tell you he's absolutely must watch, and he will absolutely have an avenue to be a first round pick next year. Who do you think I'm thinking of? I'll give you one simple, quick guess. I will just also say you can guess the position group, because from there I will take it over.
Travion Henderson, running back.
Boom, man, home run. Travion Henderson, people. He's in our division, so you're going to have two opportunities to see him. He is the best offensive player outside of Drake May. I mean, it's quarterback, but that's not fair. He is the best offensive player that the New England Patriots have. And I think
by far,
it's not even close.
Yeah.
And I think there might be a brief moment early in the season where Vrabel's not going to want to go crazy with a rookie and stuff, but it's just going to be too good to avoid. And if you're trying to win games, you need your best players making big plays. And he is the guy to do it for you. They don't have the receivers to do it. They certainly don't have the tight ends to do it. And Ramondre, look, you had maybe a little bit of a flash there for a brief moment in time, but step aside. There's a new dog in your backfield, and he is fast, he is hungry, and he is going to be a monster once he's given the opportunity. Vrabel loves himself a workhorse too, and feed the hot hand kind of approach, especially from the running back position. It is just, it smells like an absolute home run. He is an individual I was seeking out aggressively in fantasy drafts for multitude of reasons. I cannot fall in love with a player enough. I mean, Josh, I don't pay attention to preseason football very much, but when one of the first times this individual touched a ball was on, I believe, a punt or kick return, and I was like, all right, yeah, this guy's a dog. I love this guy. Just put the ball in his hands, make things happen. Vrabel will see it that way very soon. If he doesn't see it come week one right out the gate. It's when you put this question in here, I was like, no brainer. There is one name I have in mind here, because I know he's a rookie and I get that it's an unknown, but holy shit, when you watch enough of him at Ohio State and you even see in meaningless football of preseason, you see what he's doing. It was like pros playing with amateurs, and he is the pro. Like, that is, watch out for Travion Henderson. He is a beast.
I can't believe neither of us mentioned Joshua Palmer.
Oh boy.
I would like to say that I don't get 2 votes, but if I could get an honorary mention, Marvin Harrison Jr. also going to just have a massive, massive, massive season. I believe in that so much. I'm backing him financially. I believe everything about this kid. I refuse to believe that last year is where he's really going to slot in. The talent is just too good. I still believe in the quarterback. I probably shouldn't. And I just think Marvin Harrison is going to be, you already can see it in his change in body composition. I think he's going to take the league by storm. All right, Luca, the last question, kind of a negative question. Hate to end it that way, but hey, it's not going to be Sean McDermott. Who's the first? I hope so.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, if it is, what a year we're
having. Why would you even throw that into the air? Oh my God.
I'll let you go first. Who's the first coach to get fired, assuming one gets fired midseason?
So we were right before we went on air. I wanted to write these down just so I didn't lose my thoughts. And this was the only one that, as I know you were aware of, I kind of just sat there and I was like, man, I really wanted to try to figure out who it could be, because it does feel like sometimes even that first coach that's fired is a little bit unexpected. It's an eyebrow raiser. It's like, oh, wow, they really quit on it early. I mean, look no further than what happened last season when Saleh was fired so quick. It was, look, the Jets was a disaster, even though you had individuals in the preseason like Josh himself saying that they were going to win the division. I get that it just went so bad so quick. Sorry,
I love when you bring that one up.
so bad so quick, but that was not the way to do it, and it was shocking the way they did. But there's only one name that it's just your brain kept going back to over and over again. And even the overreactionary or Bills homers on Twitter, when you put out these questions, that it was so funny how it's just the same name over and over. And we talked about how the vibes are terrible. McDaniels is just like, he is long to be gone. Like, I love, what's the exclamation on it, just to wrap this up real quick. The exclamation on it all is his pressers. His press conferences are ones that people early on were like, oh, this guy, he's different. It's quirky. It's funny. It's awesome. And it's like, he's still doing it right now. And now you're just like, is this guy serious right now? Can he take this job more seriously? Can he give me a more serious approach? Can he give me a more straightforward answer, please? Like, vibes are not good right now. Like, please don't, wear that stupid, it could be colder shirt or whatever. It's like, don't do that stuff right now. Like, read the room, understand the situation. And this isn't the time for your quirky BS, nonsense. Like, figure it the F out. And right now it doesn't feel like anything's going to be figured out. And ultimately, with where things stand with that roster, with where the future projects, that's the one that it's like, okay, let's evaluate the roster post McDaniels. Let's see what the hell we got to do, and maybe get a jump on the coaching hire late in the season. Because you get him out of the door.
It's a great point. The hokiness, the quirkiness, it's cool when things are going good, but man, you run a risk when things go south. We saw that firsthand with Rex Ryan. When he put on the Clemson helmet, the Bills were doing pretty well at that point. It's like, oh, look at our guy Rex Ryan. And then he brought his brother in, and they rode the tandem bikes together, and he ate a dog treat with Terry Pagula, and they're out there like giving up 200 yards rushing to Jay Ajayi and the Dolphins, and only having 10 men on the field in overtime. And you're like, this is no longer charming. This is actually obnoxious. And Dolphins fans, we can say what we want to. We can feel their pain. They haven't been to the playoffs since, they haven't won a playoff game, since 2001. We can feel that pain. We know that pain. We make fun of it. Then they come back, how many Super Bowls you got? Like, it's a dumb conversation, but that's an angry fan base. And every time he goes up there and he's like, I mean, you just want to, yeah, it's bad. I think he's the obvious pick. At the risk of just giving another name, even though he would be my pick, I think Kyle Shanahan's interesting to watch. I feel like maybe he's starting to get on the nerves of folks in San Francisco. I don't love the vibes in San Francisco. Brandon Ayuk may not be coming back. Jawan Jennings has a weird contract situation going on. That roster seems like it got old pretty quickly. They lost Jadarius Ward in free agency. I don't like what's going on in San Francisco. Deebo Samuel left. Christian McCaffrey's coming off of multiple injuries now. It just feels like a situation where expectations could be here. If they start off slow, maybe they call today, and then that guy you mentioned before, Robert Saleh, takes over as interim head coach. That would be my pick. But we don't have to worry about that in Buffalo, we hope. What we do have to worry about in Buffalo is the Baltimore Ravens coming to town on Sunday Night Football. And Luka and I'll be back next week to break it all down. Hopefully a big Bills win to kick off the season. But either way, football season is back. Luka and I are excited, and we will be here very late Sunday night recording Bills Ravens post game. So if the Bills and this guy behind me right here, Josh Allen, could give us a win to talk about in the early minutes of the morning, that would be wonderful. But Luka, we'll be back next week. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you next week on the first post game show of Buffalo Bills 2025 season.